What's up, everybody? This is A7X Van Ben, and welcome to another fleet making video. This one is going to be trying to create as much chaos on the map as possible. So we're going to call it Map Chaos, and I'm going to initially, my idea is for a 60-point fleet, and it could easily be modified up. I think it's going to be hard to make it smaller, I guess, with the ideas I have in mind, but a lot of it's going to be based on unique treasures and mysterious islands like the great turtles and whatnot. So my overview is basically it's best for a game with house rules, such as the Seattle or Las Vegas house rules, where there's no terrain placement restrictions. So you don't have to have it SOA from islands and other terrain, and you can chain it together, connect them, things like that. And coins of any value or type. So instead of having to contribute 8 coins worth 15 gold or whatever, you can do 8 unique treasures, none of which have a gold value potentially. So some house rules I like using, especially in multiplayer games, to change things up, make it pretty fun and kind of crazy. So, and then we're definitely going to have great turtle islands. And then for the terrain, you're going to ask for as many as possible. So per the rules in the setup phase, you can essentially propose any number of terrains. So players should agree on the number of terrain pieces that will be used. Wolf said if people can't agree, you roll a die, a d6 to see who gets what they want. So you're gonna propose like 10 plus terrain to try to have as many as possible out there. I'm thinking at least one of each iceberg 1 through 6, so that an iceberg will move every single player turn guaranteed, and preferably have like all kinds of terrain types. It's not really it's more of a fun fleet than a fleet that's supposed to win. So I've done a ton of competitive fleet idea making videos and stuff. So now I'm getting into some more of the just random ideas and kind of chaotic elements of the game sometimes. So it's more of I wouldn't even call it a gimmick fleet. It's kind of a wild fleet idea, just to try to have a dynamic map where things move around like a shocking amount. So at the end of the game, the map looks completely different. It won't look totally different, but it'll look substantially different at the end of the game than it did when it started. So it's going to be like a shifting sands, shifting map type thing. So we'll start with the ships though. So one way to kind of make it more chaotic is to add a fog hopper. And there's a combo with the Sea Hag that I've wanted to do for a while. It uses Commander Temple. It's probably not going to be super effective without something like Micron to give this ship 2 actions in a turn, but I still think it's worth exploring just for kicks. So Cavendish is a cursed crew that allows crew of any nationality to use their abilities on that ship. And then we're also going to add the English Captain Helmsman crew, combo crew, Hermione Gold from Rise of the Fiends, because we still want this ship. This is going to be the main gunship, basically. It's going to be a fog hopper. So Captain Helmsman allows us to get move and shoot, obviously, and then L plus S speed. We need her, unfortunately, because we're going to run out of cargo really fast. It's got 3 cargo. We've already got 2 taken up, but we need Commander Temple to make this ship a ship stealer. So we're going to add Commander Temple. You own any derelict this ship explores. Both ships become docked at your home island. Nice thing is here, that's 14 points. So we do have the point cap space and the cargo, because it won't take up any space, to add an oarsman, which will be cursed. So we're going to add a cursed oarsman, and that's half our build total already. So that's 30 points. It's kind of a gimmick combo. So the idea is to basically fog hop and surprise an enemy, hopefully an enemy gold runner, I guess, that has treasure on it. And then, yeah, especially because this thing doesn't have the best firepower, and it's not that fast either. So ideally, you kind of use the fog hopping to surprise an enemy gold runner near a wide island, hopefully after they've loaded treasure. And then between shooting and probably ramming to hopefully dismass like a 1 or 2 or 3 masted ship. And then on the next turn, yeah, definitely ram, because then you're already going to be touching it, which is good for Commander Temple's ability. So that way, the next action the ship gets will be an explore. The only problem is if the enemy ship has an oarsman, so then you'd have to try to kill that in a boarding party, or move on to a different ship or something. So that's kind of our idea there. And then the other idea with moving stuff around is the great turtles. So we're going to have our contribution to the islands is going to be great turtles, there is a chance that you won't use mysterious island effects because people might not agree to use them. But so you can propose that mysterious island effects are legal for this game, obviously. But you might want to, when you say that, if your opponents aren't expecting that, you might want to say that they're the Great Turtle Islands, because those are usually not as like ill regarded as some of the other mysterious islands, because there's mysterious islands that break the game by allowing you to yank in events and unique treasures and stuff. So these are a little more like neutral, or a little more, they're not a, I think it's probably harder to gamify them. So you might want to mention that you're just talking about great turtles, so it's not like some crazy mysterious island farming chaos. So it's more just about like having fun moving stuff around. So the great turtles say, if no ships are docked to this island, give one of your ships a move action, but do not move her. Instead, move this island S. This island can't be moved within 2S of any ships or other islands, which is that's kind of lame. So that's another thing you might want to have on the docket for house rules if you use this fleet, is taking out that last sentence, basically, if other players agree to it. So, and then the idea is to use native canoes with this, because native canoes, you get 5 for, in this case, we're going to use the American ones for only 10 points. You get 5 ships, and they can each be given a move action. Their actions have to match, like you have to give them the same action each turn, or the same type of action, but they're probably just going to be moving for the most part anyway. So give one of your ships a move action, but if you have 5 canoes, then you have 5. So you could move with one set of canoes, you could move a great turtle 10s in one turn if you sacrificed your canoes move actions, which you won't want to do every turn or all the time, but it's a fun idea. I first tried this out I don't know if it was the first time. It may have been the second time, but there was a Circle of Blood game I played against Captain Randy in Vegas where I did this a bit, and it was fun. But yeah, so we need a chieftain. So we're gonna load up a rattlesnake. I don't know if this is gonna work or not, but I think it will. So we're gonna try to massively overload this rattlesnake, and Captain Charles Richard is gonna be one of the ways we do it. So he's kind of like Jonah, but he also has the captain ability, which we don't really want, but it's fine, because he's the only American crew that has this this ability. So crew placed on the ship cost no points, still take up cargo spaces, and they always take up cargo spaces actually, which is good to remember. And then we'll add the native canoes in a minute. So he's going to be there to allow a ton of crew to come aboard this ship, because she's only 5 points, but she has 5 cargo. So she's perfect for a crew like that. So once I'll add the canoes right now. So we're going to add the native canoe chieftain to the rattlesnake. So that is going to be 10 points on the rattlesnake, but with Richard's ability, they're going to fit, because we can exceed the point cap of the ship. We're already at 48 points, but we're going to keep adding. So now I have some other kind of funky ideas. We're going to add a +2 gold ability. So the idea is that the canoes, when they're not moving great turtles, they're going to actually use their ability to transfer a treasure from one canoe to another. So they're going to try to do like a treasure chain, where they stretch from a wild island back to your home island, and then ideally the last ship in the chain is going to be touching the rattlesnake, and then the rattlesnake's action for the turn could be to explore that last canoe, and then on the next turn she'll explore the home island to get +2 gold. It's probably going to be too slow to make it useful. The problem with having the last canoe in the chain explore rattlesnake to make it faster is that then all the canoes have to be given an explore action, because their actions have to match from one turn to the next. So, or like you have to give them all an explore action if that's their action for the turn. So it's probably not going to be that great of an idea. But this is just kind of the first iteration of this fleet as well. I might swap out Ralph David. He might be a +5 crew, or a +5 addition, because we actually do have room for Perry. So this ship is going to be way overloaded on points. So we've already got 16 points worth of crew. We're going to add Perry. Keep in mind the chieftain would be there as well, so that's 4 cargo spaces. So now we have only 1 space left, but I think I'm going to add a navigator as well, because Rattlesnake will not always be getting actions. Yeah, her default is to stay at the home island, protect the chieftain, and Perry. So she's actually a good candidate for a navigator so that she can actually be useful while she's just sitting at home. You could add, or we could add the Return to Savage Shores version of George Washington LeBeau, who is essentially like a Lord Micron for the Americans. I'm not really trying to use an ability like that in this fleet. It's a little more gimmicky, but at least that option exists. We'll see if the points work out for it. I might swap the navigator for LeBeau, GWL, as I like to call him, later, but we'll see. So 53, but then with Perry, we'll be able to get to 65, and it's really easy. You could just do H gold for the +5 if you need to. So we got 12 points left. So that's pretty good. So I was thinking about events as well, which might not always be legal, especially in a more casual game that I'm intending to play this fleet in. But this is another thing where you might want to contact the play group or talk to other players in advance and just be like, could we use events if they're not like mermaids or maybe like events are allowed but not mermaids and hidden cove or something? Because this fleet is not going to use the overpowered events. It's going to use rolling fog, and then so that's 1 point. So we'll keep that in mind. So this one basically allows a fog bank to move around. So it's kind of just, it's not really that useful. It's just kind of a fun thing. Cursed Zone could be pretty good actually. I've barely ever used this. I haven't used this in probably a decade. So this one reveals event at the beginning of your turns, places the token anywhere on the play area, except on an island or terrain. Any die rolls made for ships within L of the token get -2 to their results. So it's just kind of an interesting idea to basically use it with terrain, like near terrain, and then it kind of messes with the map even more, makes it more chaotic. The only issue there is, for my intentions, are that it says die rolls made for ships, but a lot of times terrain rolls are for it's for the reef. So the rolls you make might not really apply as much. They would apply to whirlpools and I guess fog banks too, it looks like. So this one's kind of debatable if it should be part of the fleet, but it's only 3 points. So we're going to add it by default for rolling fog and cursed zone events. So take out the space there. That gets us to 57 points. So, and then I don't know if I'm even going to finish it right this second, because this is like the main idea of the fleet. I guess there's not really supposed to be faction synergy. We got American, English, cursed, so it's kind of just all over the place. So even with events, we're only at 57, so we still have 8 points left. That's kind of interesting. If we went with LeBeau instead of the navigator, that'd be +4 overall. So we'd be at 61, and we'd have 4 points left, which of course you could just do like Banshee's Cry with Explorer, but it's kind of boring. So I don't really want to. It's not a fleet where I want to do that, I guess. Unlike the more competitive fleets. Oh, I did talk. Okay, yeah, I mentioned Smoke Pot. I think I'm gonna try that. For 8 points, that's tough, but we might be able to pull it off. Let me see. We're probably gonna have to go with some other faction maybe than what we already have, but this is where the searchable databases come in really handy. So we have 8 points left. We know Smokebot Specialist or Smokebot Shot is 3. So that only leaves us with 5 points for a ship. So I guess, of course, Banshee's Cry for 3 might actually be the best option, but that's kind of boring. We'll keep that in mind. So we're going to do a minimum of 3 points, a max of 5, and we want a ship that goes at least, we're not going to have space, we're not going to have room for a helmsman no matter what, because we would need a 5-point ship and then a helmsman. That would be 10 points. We only have 8 to work with. So we want a base move at least S+L. That's a good minimum for ships without helmsman. And then, yeah, we'll just start with that. And we're basically looking for a Smoke Pot Specialist support ship for the Sea Hag, especially because you'd probably want to put whirlpools on the map just as part of the theme of this fleet. It might not be the best idea strategically, but there's probably going to be whirlpools out there too, hopefully. So, so let's see. Oh, well, that's another idea. Is you could actually add Calypso, I think, for those 8. Yeah, I'm going to make a note about that. For last 8 points, also add Rover plus Calypso with Jonah. So 8 points is like the minimum for a Calypso combo. So at 57 with the events, we could add Jonah on the Rover with Calypso, but this fleet doesn't really have the right stuff to take advantage of Calypso actually. So because we don't really have double actions, and it's not really that would just be for throwing more whirlpools out there. So I think we're going to try to include whirlpools in the setup rather than generate them. And also we're definitely going to include the Lost CT, but how could we not, given the theme of this fleet? So for a smoke pot, so now we're going back to our, there's not many options. I'm already at the bottom. So these are all the ships in the game in the 3 to 5 range with at least S+L speed, not including Return to Savage Shores, but I don't think Plague of the South is really good. She's too expensive. Yeah, I don't think there's no ships that are 5 or less that have what we want in Return to Savage Shores either. The French one's close, but not quite. So that's fine. So now it just depends on what you want in a smoke pot specialist support ship. These are pretty fun options, actually. Intrepide would probably be the best one as like a hybrid, but I might go with Le Pique. You could also keep the faction synergy a little bit more coherent by doing the English Antelope, but it's not as good as some of the other options. So, and you could go with like Banshee's Cry, and then you still have 2 points left for like Rover or Mermaid empty. But again, this is not a competitive fleet, so I'm trying to use that opportunity to stay away from stuff like that. And of course, Intrepide and Pique are also very competitive ships, so you could stay away from both of those. Fancy is a decent option. There's a lot of decent options. I think I like Pique for the speed, and she'll have 2 card spaces open for gold, and then you'll have the sniping ability too with that 2S cannon. So I like that one. I think I'll just go with that. So a lot of different options you could go with, but we'll start with this one, and then we're going to add, trying to think if we want to add, do we want a specialist or do we want the shot? Smoke pot shot theoretically can't be eliminated in a whirlpool, which could be a bad thing if she's running treasure. So we're probably going to go with the specialist, I think. So let's try that. So we got French smoke pot specialists. We'll go with the Barbary Coast one. A little bit easier to acquire than the Ocean's Edge one, I guess. So that completes our fleet idea here. So with the events, that gets us to 65, but there's a little bit more left to do. So she's basically just a support for Sea Hag. There's probably going to be fog banks from the terrain setup in general, but if not, or if there's only like 1 or 2, Pique could kind of enhance her usability a bit, or maybe give her an exit location right next to your home island. Well, she probably won't need that with Commander Temple, but you never know. She might fail in using Temple and have to come home for repairs. So it's good to have a support ship for the Fog Hopper, and also that'll help with the gold running. This fleet has a little bit more gold capability than I thought, between the +2 of Ralph David, all the cargo on the canoes, and then Pique. Pique might end up running gold more than she ever does with the smoke pot specialist. So it's not competitive at all, but it might be reasonable in like casual 60-point games. Could be pretty fun. It's more about fun here than competing. So we're going to add forts just as a contingency. So we have French, American, and Kursk ships in the fleet. Kursk don't have a fort, so we're just going to add the other forts just to cover our bases, and in case we want to build any of these ones. So those are the 3 that we'll have available, and then we might actually have more available if we capture a ship of another faction. So with Commander Temple, maybe you'll capture like an English ship or a pirate gold runner and then be able to build a fort of that nationality. But okay. So, and then unique treasures is actually one of the biggest themes of this entire fleet because they get totally crazy. So bad maps is one of the center points, one of the focal UTs. So it allows you to move an island 2L. And we're actually going to add Pandora's box just to increase the chaos even more. So ideally with Pandora's box, you would bring in another bad maps, depending on who finds it and like if that's actually a good idea. If you find the Pandora's box, you might want to bring in an extra copy of Lost. So that's another UT we'll have in the basic setup. And then, yeah, so it'd be good to have like duplicate UTs on hand. Bad maps is pretty rare. South China Sea is rare. So, but you might, like I have a couple copies of Lost, or a few at least. So that one's easier to duplicate because Pandora's box allows you to bring in a UT from outside the game, which can duplicate one already in play. So a UT chosen may duplicate one that is already in play and or one that has been chosen by a preceding player. No duplicates only applies when placing treasure pool during setup. So that's great. So Lost is going to add terrain. And again, this is another thing you could try to house rule or talk about before the game to disregard that terrain placement restriction. So, and then you can place Lost terrain under stuff, which is insane and hilarious. So, and pretty much broken, but whatever. So Lost, all three of these UTs are all some of the craziest in the game. Pandora's box and Lost are probably top 3, or they're probably both at least top 5, if not maybe both top 3 in terms of like just sheer chaos UTs. Like when you find it, you're like, oh shit, like holy crap. So it should be pretty funny. Could be a pretty crazy game. So ideally, like I said, if somebody else finds the box, you might send them a bad maps, yank them around. This would be really fun in a multiplayer game too, I think, this like fleet idea. And then if you find the box, like I said, you might want to place Lost. And you could place fog banks for Sea Hag. You could put whirlpools. You could reef opponents' ships. So ideally you get good rolls. It'd be really insane if you got a 6 with Lost and then Pandora's box brought in another and you got another 6. You could add like a full dozen terrain to the game, which would be pretty wild. Not likely, but possibility at least. And then we're also going to add the whirlpool UT just to increase the movement of stuff on the map. So that yanks a ship into the nearest whirlpool. And then, so I might stick with 5 for now. Well, I'll do the first 5 as the default 5. So normally you have to contribute in a standard game. You have to do 8 for 15. So you have to have at least 3 coins worth value based on the max value of 7. Like 771 being the most extreme treasure distribution you could contribute. I like using house rules especially in multiplayer casual games where you can contribute coins of any value or type. So you could do 8 UTs, you could do 5 zeros and 3 sevens, or whatever you want basically. So I'll do the first 5 UTs as like the defaults, and then I'm gonna throw in a few more at the end that are optional if you do use that house rule, where you can have up to 8 or more if you're adding more than 8 coins to the distribution. So Runes of the Serpent allows you to dock in an iceberg and then essentially teleport to a different iceberg. So that's pretty wild. And then I think those are, I've almost never used that. I don't think I've used it in a game, like the ability. I think it's showing up in a game, but I wasn't able to pull it off or something. I've almost never seen it. So, and then we're going to add some other ones. So in case you're able to add more than 5 UTs to the setup, you could do these ones too. So Witch's Brew. That one is an interesting way to sabotage an opponent. Sea Hag's ability is face up, so they can easily see that it's a Fog Hopper, but maybe they'll forget, or maybe they haven't played against the Fog Hopper. It'd be interesting to have an opponent use Witch's Brew just for the heck of it, or something, and have Sea Hag come through the fog bank that they create, almost as like a weird sabotage. And then we're also going to add Runes of... This is where it gets crazy, because Runes of Odin and Runes of Magic are like the Odin missile combo that it's not really the focus of this game, but it is called Map Chaos. So we might as well allow an iceberg from outside the game. And then Runes of Magic allows you to move an iceberg L. So even if they're not used together, it could be pretty crazy. So, okay. I think that's pretty much it. There's probably other unique treasures that might be fun to use, but let me see what I can do here. So I think I have most of the things I want, most of the game elements in this fleet that I want. We've got moving islands, we've got UTs that create a lot of chaos, we've got ships that either use terrain or place it. So that's part of the reason I included the navigator, is just to change the map. So like there's more trade currents, so it looks different. We almost want the map to look visually as different as possible by the end of the game as we can. I'm just going to scroll through these UTs a little bit just to see if there's any other potential options that have to do with like moving terrain, creating terrain, or moving islands. But we already have the basics, so I don't think there's going to be anything too crazy. Volcano doesn't really, we really want to move stuff, which is why bad maps gets so interesting. Maps of Hades, that moves a ship, but we're more thinking about like islands and terrain than moving ships here. So you could do, I mean, I guess if you agree to use Mysterious Islands, other players might have them too. So you could do Nemo's charts, but could be interesting. But I think we already have 8, I think, right? Yeah, there's 8 unique treasures. So even if you use the house rule where you don't have to contribute UT's worth value, you're already contributing theoretically the max, unless players are putting more than 8 in. If you have more than 4 per island, for example. But I don't play too many games like that, so I definitely want to again, but sometimes it just slows the game down. So I guess like Runes of Destruction, that's the opposite of what we want. We don't want to eliminate any terrain. We want more terrain. So, oh, and then there's some other combos you could try with this. Like one of the crazier, like more obscure combos in the game is using the rolling fog event, and then already having Runes of Loki or Runes of Thor with Nemo's plans, and then you can force the fog bank roll to a 1 or 6 to move the fog bank in a direction you want every turn, which is really, really bizarre idea. I think that's a little too niche for what I'm going with here. It's an idea, but it's a little bit too controlled. But something to keep in mind if you're able to contribute like a disgusting amount of unique treasures. Message in a Bottle is a good one. I'll put that one. Yeah, that one's worth adding here. So we'll put Message in a Bottle from Ocean's Edge towards the bottom of the options here. So that one can warp a ship around, start yanking more stuff around. Driftwood. Like Homing Beacon is kind of the opposite of what we want to. We want ships to struggle to get back to their home islands. We don't want protection from Davy Jones. That's like the antithesis of what the idea is. Yeah, Lost in Whirlpool, we got both of those, so that's good. We definitely do not want Piratic Codex. Davy Jones Key is kind of weird, but doesn't move islands or terrain or game pieces, so. Cotton's Parrot. Barrel of Monkeys. That's a pretty funny one, but it doesn't really fit with the theme of this fleet though. Turtles, maybe. It's not really gonna change the map though, so I've seen turtles a lot too, so I don't want to put it in every casual fleet I see. I guess I'll let other people do that. Frond. Oh, the charts. Yeah, I guess. Okay, so I don't want that one. Necklace of the Sky is an option too. It gives you a lot of control though. I like how Message in a Bottle is more random. It's more chaotic. This one, like you choose the island. So the wild island. So Celestin's charts is kind of the opposite of what we want, but that reminds me of the Return to Savage Shores UTs. So that one, I have Maru, we won't use, but we're going to add native lore, place 3 trade currents. So this is another UT that generates terrain from outside the game. So let's see if we can add that one. That one is actually a priority. That might be a priority for the first 5, but although it's unreleased, so I don't want to prioritize it because nobody has this UT. So you'd have to you might scratch off like a 1 coin and write native lore on it or something to make it proxy, or make artwork or something and tape it on or glue it on or something. But yeah, place 3 trade currents, then remove it from the game. So that's a good one. If Return to Savage Shores game pieces are allowed, native lore would be a good one to add. Anything that adds terrain to the setup is kind of what we're going for. So, all right, so that's map chaos. I think that pretty much covers it. So we've got a fog hopper trying to steal ships. We got canoes warping treasure around, hopefully getting plussed up with the +2, generating some trade currents, generating some smoke, and then all kinds of crazy UTs that might generate all kinds of terrain, move islands around, move ships around, teleport between icebergs. Should be chaotic. So it's kind of a fun fleet idea I wanted to try out. So it'd be pretty easy to make it more expensive. You could even try a 50-point version. If you took out the navigator and they peak with the crew, you could actually get it down to a more manageable point size, or obviously add more points. Then I would do, if it was like 100 points, I would definitely dedicate the last 40 to like Calypso with a monster gunship like Zeus coming through, or something crazy like that. Or maybe even a fog hopping copier, like the copier Davy Jones, and then have like a 10 master that fog hops too or something. So anyway, a lot of fun ideas with this. Feel free to comment what you think of this fleet. And if you'd like to see more casual fleet ideas and videos from me, and feel free to check out the affiliate links in the description below. They'll help support the channel and my Pirates with Ben website. Appreciate you checking out the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in more videos.